Now you have all the inputs from your analysis. Now you're going to actually design the job. What is involved with that? Let's look. You got the job design. It's really defining how the work will be performed and the task for it as you go through. Once upon a time, there was a study called the Hawthorne study, which really is a monumental study. They went through Hawthorne. It really was at the Hawthorne electric plant where they assembled different wiring components for telephones back in the 30s and the 40s as they went through. They went through the process and they analyzed exactly how they went through and did that. They paid attention to people, but really it started off being a scientific management experiment where let's see what kind of lighting is perfect for these people to put these assemblies together. And they literally changed, they had a crew of workmen come in and they changed the light bulbs as they went through. Productivity went up. They changed light bulbs again to make it even brighter. Productivity went up. They changed the light bulbs again. It went up again. And they thought, wow, every time we change the lighting, it's brighter, productivity increases. Let's try something weird. Let's reduce the lighting. They reduced the lighting. And of course, productivity increased again. They made it darker. It increased again. It finally got to be so dark, they had to have almost lights to see for safety's sake. What they found, it wasn't about the lighting, it was about the fact that management was paying attention to the people doing the work. It's incredible. Ask the workers, how's it going? How can I improve your work performance? And they rise to the challenge. We really, from the Hawthorne study, we had an entire school of actually human resource, we call it human relations management as you go through. A lot of that should be involved in the job design because the workers kept on telling them, if I do this, I'm more productive, talk to the employees. It's incredible how that input really helps. Change the task, change the design or redesign to make certain that you go through and use the 4 basic approaches we'll talk to in a second. Here's an example. McDonald's, of all places, which is a gigantic worldwide organization, they had a snack wrap as they went through. Okay, and it's a wrap for wrap. So McDonald's Corporation, they canceled the whole thing because they brought up this whole aspect of the snack wraps, and it was so complex. Nobody can get it right. They were having different aspects of it. They took too long to assemble. They were really frustrated in the process. And finally, McDonald's gave it up because they couldn't design the work to make the snack wraps work very well. Different kinds of approaches. Try to find the mechanistic approach, the simplest way to make it work with a maximum efficiency as you go through. A lot of times workers are trained in the best way to do the job. And they're selected on their ability to do it as you go through. Do it this way, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. You want to have a job that really goes through and make certain you have something like that. The applications for the job come in. The HR specialist reads it all. Do they meet the minimum qualifications? Here are the minimum qualifications. The HR specialist should be paying attention to that. Any anomalies you think may pertain to it, but really are not exactly specified, check box. You may have a group of people that meet the applications exactly as you specified already, people that may and people that don't. If you have 966 applications for a job I once had, we had a 19.5-hour assistant for childcare at one of the colleges. And how do you deal with that? Well, you know what? You don't sit there and look for anybody else that doesn't meet certain qualifications. We threw out as many as we could because there's so many people out there, and we still ended up with 247 different applications for it. There were people with master's degree, even a couple of people with doctorates applying for a part-time, low-paying job to work as assistant in childcare because it was the middle of a recession. So focus in on really what is the best way of doing it. Sometimes you discard things that may be good in normal circumstances, but today, because of the job market, or it could be the fact that you wanted these things over here and all of a sudden you can't find any workers for this one job. You have 2 applicants. Normally, you don't even look at a job without 10 people. So maybe you have to sit there and focus in on the 2 applicants, which one of the 2 is the best. Really, you want to make certain on scientific management that there's a good way of doing it and the people that are involved can sit down and do that exactly as you want them to have it. A lot of times, monetary incentives really help. Here's the actual process. You get rewarded for this as you go through. The motivational approach, focus on the psychological and motivational potential for a job as you go through. And sometimes have the attitude as you go through, looking for things that you're looking for. You like to have this over there. Build things into the job that really gives them input and significance in the process, that this job means something as you go through in the process. You also want to pay attention to the ergonomics. You know what? Nobody should go to work and have biological pain because of you have a sloppy work design as you go through. Make certain your employees are safe when they go to work. Make certain that because they're doing this, that they're not trying to get around behind the machine as you go through, and they have 2 inches of clearance and they're trying to reach around a 3-foot box. They're trying to put a plug in the back over here that they can't see at all, and they're really groping for that in the process. If that's the case, fix the process, rotate it, do something different. Don't put the employee in the situation where they're having a hard physical time doing the job as they go through. Redesign the equipment for a demanding job. Make certain you have a process where people feel safe and they're not damaging their body every single time they do a task for your organization as you go through. Really have the perceptual motor approach as you go through. Make certain that you don't sit down there and make it so complex that after 5 hours doing the job that their brain is totally fried and they're bored and they can't do it, or that is so complex that they have a headache all day long trying to figure out what is next in the process. Really base it upon the least capable worker, not your genius person that's sitting over there who's a superstar. They make it bored in the process, but make certain you use your lowest common denominator, what the expectations are, and design the job on that one as you go through. Information overload can really detract a lot from performance. So on job design, after the analysis, build the job around the data from the analysis, and then build it around the listen to current occupants from Hawthorne studies, strive for simplicity on the lowest denominator, not the highest, but the lowest as you go through, build on practical work sites, and don't exhaust the employees like the McDonald's snack wrap as you go through from needless details. Focus in on the work that truly needs to be done, not those micro details that somebody thinks are very interesting. That being said, take care.